of success, but very strange to play him to see him play so calmly here. And a lot of pawn moves here for black. He's just trying to control squares, trying to keep the game as closed as possible. Eventually, black will develop. Black will get a dark squared bishop out, fianchetto it, get castled. It's a very healthy position, but a very slow start to this game.
But I like that for Magnus, actually, because when there are tactics flying and you don't have time to calculate, that's when you have to spend a lot of time just to survive. Here, there's no threats in the position, so it's a calm approach from Magnus and from Wesley. Wesley may want to prolong the game, but for Magnus, that means he gets closer and closer to move 60 with a bunch of easier moves. But knight h2, clearly Wesley wants to strike with f4 and open up the f line.
Wow, really spicy, really ambitious move there. And white again is ahead in development in this game. So opening the lines, getting castled, throwing pawns towards the opponent makes a lot of sense. Magnus, I actually do fear for him if Wesley is in preparation, if Wesley is able to whip up an attack. I'm expecting Wesley to castle first. Here we go, the king gets to safety and f4 for the score on the board. Almost guaranteed next move.
We'd love to see that happen, but that's such a double-edged move because you open up the f-line, but you're also potentially allowing black to open up that bishop on g7, which can be quite a nasty piece. Also, in return, giving up the e5 square. It has been played. Everything has been done. F-line open, bishop open, knight potentially jumping onto e5. The queen from d1 can line up with a bishop from f4, start targeting the h6 pawn. This is already a game for all three results, and that favors one player in the Armageddon, white.
It does favour white. Black, in the meantime, castles. This is a brave move from Magnus. Maybe it had to be done. But yeah, Wesley now has the chance to muddy the waters. I mean, it feels like there's something in the air out there in Toronto. It's just such crazy games every single round. And there we see the air quality. And I wonder how the players deal with that. Magnus likes a very warm room. We've seen that throughout the entire Champions Chess Tour. It's looking very humid out there. Maybe due to how hot the games have been.
I was going to say, you might like the room to be warm, but humidity, that's another story. I'm from New York. I know how those summers get. And in this position, it feels like things are about to get quite hot on the board because that black king that just castled, it could be in the line of fire. It just goes out to protect that pawn in front of it now. But the f7 square is a bit vulnerable. There are going to be some attacking chances for Wesley. Doubling rooks in the f-file seems to be a likely possibility for him. And I'm really liking the start. Maybe he'll even push his g-pawn forward, throw it at black's king.
Yeah, Magnus, meanwhile, also doing a good job of trying to neutralize the pressure. The more pieces that disappear, the safer he becomes. So offering this trade of light squared bishops. And again, we'll learn a lot about Wesley's mindset on this next couple of moves. If he just trades the bishops off, kind of starts stepping back, retreating, maneuvering, then Magnus, I think, is in great shape. But maybe there's something more ambitious. Maybe you just leave the bishops and pose questions to Magnus, say, I'm going to trade on my own terms. He still has a 5-minute time advantage, so he needs to maintain the tension. He needs to ask some big questions of Magnus Carlsen.
I like the point of white just keeping the bishop there because yes, if Magnus was to trade on c4, it gives white the double pawn, but it creates a big glaring weakness for Magnus with that d6 pawn. So just leaving the bishop on c4 to allow tension, and what a move by Wesley So. Jumps in with a knight check, and that knight is on pre. Wesley playing for the win.
Knight sacrifice. The knight has to be captured. This is a check. I'm not sure why Magnus is pausing. Maybe trying to look into the future. The black light square bishop on e6 as well, vulnerable. So this is a poison knight potentially, but you have to take it. You have to call the bluff. There we go. The idea is that this is an almost unbreakable pin. White's dark square bishop attacking a black knight, attacking the black queen indirectly behind it, and black's king out in the open now. Wow, is this inspiration? Is this a rush of blood to the head?
Wesley took us back to the romantic era of chess before the engines were invented and killed some of the creativity. Unfortunately for him, it looks like Magnus might kill his creativity because while there is maximum pressure down the f-line, the engine and Magnus Carlsen both say black should be okay. That knight that went to e5, sure, it was putting pressure on the bishop for white on c4, but it can also drop back to d7 to defend this knight. Things are getting spicy here, though, as the white queen is trying to slide to the h4 square. As Magnus retreats back to d7, he seems to have everything under control.
I hear you, but I just love what Wesley's done. An intuitive sacrifice based on this pin. There are these ideas of getting the queen in with a check. The king moves back, David, and now all you're looking for is one more piece to join the attack, to actually attack that pinned knight on f6. And you can think about doubling up the rook, but another plan comes to mind is throw that e-pawn down the board. I want to vacate the e4 square for my knight. Knight jumping into e4. There are some real threats to counter here.
Yeah, I love it, Tanya. You have to, I mean, you said A, you have to keep throwing fuel on the fire. You have to invest more material. You have to say B, you have to just go all out for the attack now. And this is pretty much the only way. If black gets one more move, if black gets to trade off these bishops and move the queen out of the way, out of this pin, then the attack fizzles out, it dies, game over, you're a piece down. So an energetic idea like that one is pretty much forced. It is necessary. Maybe he's just checking the move order here, looking for options, but giving a check, throwing the pawn out the way, adding another piece to the attack, and still anything could happen.
Is the point that if black plays bishop f5 just to intercept the rook on f1 that's trying to barrel it down, are you going to take that bishop? Like, are you really just going to continue sacrificing all your pieces? Well, the engine didn't actually change. It still is better for black, but this is scary with that knight trying to backtrack into f5. Ooh,
He's
it's
done
happening.
It, but it is a different move order. He doesn't give a check first, but we might see this line being played out once the f file is blocked. I don't see another way to fight the pin. You have to go bishop f5.
I think he's trying to hide the idea. If he played bishop f5, or if he'd given a check first, white's rook would obviously at least have the option of going to take that bishop. He's saying, please play bishop f5, and then I'll get out the way with a check, with gain of time, and then I'll take you. And I mean, you mentioned the romantic era of chess, Robert. I grew up reading about all these games, Morphy games, sack, 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 mate. And it looks like at least the start of one of those examples from the 19th century.
I mean, this looks like a timeless love story, talking about a romantic era. This is a fantastic game so far, but the big question is, can Wesley take it to the net right now? He is putting maximum pressure on that f6 knight. Magnus Carlsen in a bit of a trouble. He's feeling the heat.
He's feeling it on the board and on the clock. His bid was quite low, and while Wesley seemed a bit dejected, perhaps he shouldn't have been, because Magnus down to 5 minutes, 40 seconds. The start of this game was calm, but it was the calm before the storm, and Wesley So has been storming in this tournament. 4 match wins in 4 matches, and he is looking at number 5 unless Magnus can find all the correct moves and do so quickly, because to get to move 60 at this stage, under this pressure, it will take the top-rated player in chess history.
Yeah, he's got 43 moves before he gets any increment, so it's literally a fight to the death at this point. And I mean, surviving the next 5-10 moves is going to take a lot of accuracy.
Oh
Don't
my
see it.
gosh. And that's a minute and a half worth of think there by Magnus Carlsen with no increment, and the troubles just starting, the calculation just required. It's only going to get more difficult right now. I mean, we're setting ourselves up potentially for the first time Magnus getting flagged.
This is Wesley So just in top gear, in top form. I mean, all I can think is what could have been. If he plays like this, so ambitiously in every single game, I mean, he would be, I think, one of the best players out there. He already is, but Queen b6, this looks risky. This looks a bit counterintuitive, Robert, putting a queen on the other side from your king.
I'm kind of into that move, though, because if trades happen on f6, so many pieces come off the board that black gets to make a series of moves instantly, and then there's not much in the way of an attack for white. So this is a good decision, I would say, from Magnus. He invested a lot of time, under 5 minutes remaining, but I think there's a great choice by him.
He's just trying to control things. That variation we showed with even more sacrifices for white just looked too scary. I don't think black's defenses would have held up in a practical game. And yeah, because it is pretty much blitz at this point, especially for Magnus Carlsen. He just wants to trade pieces, as you say. And maybe we investigate, we show that line you mentioned. If white were to regain the piece that was sacrificed earlier, just take everything off the board, then we would eventually see a bishop exchange, and white can drop back with a check, avoid the queen trade. But for example, a variation like this, we do a quick count, we see, actually, it's level. Magnus has survived, and Magnus would guide this game towards safety. So Wesley first gives a check, and now the question is to drop back or to block. 2 options. Neither obvious, neither that tempting, but you have to choose one of them. Wow, this attack is still brewing. And Magnus burns even more time before blocking with his knight. This was an option not available to him earlier if white had given a check first. But wow, he's going for it now, Wesley So, and what to play? Do you simply take this bishop back? The evaluation bar jumps up. Maybe you take the knight.
Oh my goodness, the black king side, it's just being shattered. I mean, there are not many pieces in defending it, and that queen, that bishop, that knight on e4, all of them are hunting that king. And you see the eval bar saying white is significantly better. This type of position where Magnus Carlsen, doesn't matter who you are, you collapse under that firepower. Duress on the clock as well in terms of his king safety. So G takes h5. David, you're the one who pointed that out. I really like it. You're just going direct path towards that king.
Yeah, just one track mind here. Tunnel vision. You need to just focus in, zone in on that black king. If you Okay, he does it. He takes the black knight. He's going for checkmate. If the light squared bishop now saves itself, if it drops back, for example, then a double check actually, forces the black king forward out into the open, and now is the need for the killer blow. I'm struggling to find it. It feels like it must be there. The black king out in the open in no man's land. Maybe you play a move like bishop to f6, and this looks deadly. For example, if the knight takes this bishop, you give a check, you capture on f6.
With the rook.
With the rook.
No, but you should show the end of that because that's an easy trap to fall on. You take with the knight, it looks like you're winning the black queen because you're also threatening checkmate on h6, but there's rook g8, a move that saves the day here, and black would actually have the upper hand.
Yeah, so the idea would be to actually, same idea, with an inverted move order. You flip the move order and the tactic works this time. The black king 2 out in the open, and this would be a deadly combination. The queen and knight, the best duo when it comes to attacking. And while Magnus is actually walking down this variation, he's allowing it all to unfold on the board.
Wesley needs to find it. He has to calculate this through and make the correct move. And over the next 5 moves, this could be all over for Magnus Carlsen. Wesley on the brink of delivering the first blow, but he does change it up. He starts with the check. Does mixing this move order impact the outcome?
Maybe just a much more rational way of doing it. He doesn't want that mess, that melee of tactics where it's easy to blunder, as I did in that variation. Instead, he wants to simply trade everything off. Maybe he wants to take with a rook now and cash in on the dark squares. For example, a variation like this one, I think white will be successful in a king chase. The black king now would be doomed. In all of these variations, the black king is suffering, walking a tightrope. And moment of truth, Wesley takes back with the rook. And this looks decisive.
Wesley So has many fans out there, and they've all been clamoring for him to play just like this. The inspiration we're seeing in a must-win game is bringing out the best in Wesley So, who took down Magnus Carlsen for the 2019 Fischer Random World Championship title. And this game right now, with black's pieces not saving that king on h7, we could see him win in fine style, especially as Magnus, his clock is dipped below 3 minutes at the stage. How do you defend this position with no time?
Morphy,
gives up the queen.
They'd all be so proud of this effort. I mean, this is desperation from Magnus Carlsen. You saw the shake of the head on the camera there. I mean, it's just shock. Magnus is reeling with shock. This is a free pawn. I think you can just take this. You can drop the white queen back if you need to, but this is just going to end in checkmate. Magnus is down a queen as well, just for rook and bishop.
I've never seen Wesley play this kind of chess. Look at that. He puts the pawn forward, wins more material, and now the rook will join into the attack. Rook f1, rook f5, rook h5, and once that happens, it will be game over.
He's just trying to take everything with check, Wesley.
Oof.
So he's just cashing in on the material. He had that deadly attack. Magnus panicked. Understandably, it was so difficult to defend, and this is a masterpiece from start to finish.
I think Magnus is actually impressed with Wesley right now. Because sometimes when you lose, you're really upset. We saw Hikaru with that reaction before. But you have to just tip your cap to Wesley. So the way he's playing, I think he's your king f2. Get your king out of the check's way. That way you can slide your rook on over to g1 to help deliver a checkmate. I mean, Wesley, he is just doing everything perfectly. There's something about Toronto, something about Canada that is amazing for Wesley So's chess.
Yeah, wow. He's just played, I mean, every move perfectly. Look at him, Wesley So. He's even got time to admire the ceiling, admire the artwork on the walls.
He's got 6 minutes on the clock. And
it's over. I mean, rook g1
Magnus
check
Carlsen.
and queen h7 check, you win a rook. Yeah, he should look at the ceiling. This game is like the Sistine Chapel. It's beautiful artwork, and it's over. He just won this game.
Finds everything. He's played this to perfection. He gives the check. Magnus blitzing it out. Even Magnus knows this is all over. He's down. Everything on the board. He will fight this out till the end, but it's not going to be enough. Not against the Wesley So as he's shown up today.
Yeah, sometimes if you have a rook and bishop, you can hold a fortress against a queen, but this is the loosest fortress I've ever seen. Black's pawns all isolated. Black's king, too weak, out in the open. Still almost checkmated this black king. This one is over. White can simply just collect all the pawns, march the queenside pawns up the board.
Yeah.
Masterpiece.
I'm just thinking about the Wesley during the Armageddon bids. He was so disappointed and he looked so unsure, and that confidence in the comment he made that he's never going to win. I mean, what was that about? Then he comes on this board with brutal force.
I think it plays to his favor because he's playing into this narrative like, oh, I can't do this. I'm this nice guy who maybe doesn't always believe in himself. But look at what he's done here. If this does not make Wesley believe in himself, I don't know what will. But this is an absolute gem of a game from Wesley. He's just ensnaring this king. The king has no moves. If he gets to deliver one check, it's over. He's also up a couple pawns. What a beautiful, beautiful game, a tactical skirmish that has gone his way.
Yeah, a tip for everyone at home, play chess with a smile on your face. It leads to good results. Take risks, attack, enjoy it, and just don't look back. Wesley So, he's just closing out this one, finishing touches. It's so smooth. Even pawn to a4, that's just sadistic. He's just saying to Magnus, you barely have any moves left. Black is stuck. White is going to win.
White is going to win. It's under 2 minutes from Magnus. Doesn't even matter. Magnus could have 2 hours on the clock right now. He's not going to save this one. He needs more than a miracle to survive this. I mean, let's play devil's advocate just for a moment. Is there anything that Magnus can do to try and create a fortress in this one?
No, and he also doesn't believe in fortresses, right? That was one of his famous quotes, and he said it, with a smile on his face, but he is trying to drum up some counterplay. If he can win that c2 pawn, the base of White's chain, maybe he will have some chances, but I think White's the one who's going to steal a bunch of pawns here, the a5 pawn, the c5 pawn, all in dark squares, and don't be surprised if Wesley gets another queen later.
Yeah, the only thing to avoid is getting all of your pawns traded off. You need to maintain at least one, ideally 2 connected pass pawns long term. But he still has a 3-minute time advantage. He captures now. Ooh, a really nice check, just throwing Black's coordination off there. Black is forced to block with the bishop, and Black's king is going to get chased around. Things are going to fall with check. And we're all peering in, we're all looking. Oh, there were tactics galore. Black's bishop was loose, the Black king had to go back and defend it. Everything's just working so perfectly. He hasn't put a single foot wrong, Wesley So.
Just outplayed Magnus Carlsen. How do you do that?
He played every move with purpose in this game, throwing in a little pawn push with check when it looks like he's going to make the obvious capture. I mean, look at Magnus, right? Magnus is just like, I'm playing, I'm trying my best, but after this game, I promise you, Magnus is like, wow, that was Wesley when he's at his best, and honestly, there's little even I could do about it.
We have to see where it all went wrong once this is all over, because it just felt like a Wesley So show start to finish. How did things turn out so bad for Magnus, and he's still fighting it out, still trying to find a defense here? Can White just keep getting greedy and pick up the last remaining pawn on the queen side?
I think the answer is yes. This feels like a chess boxing match where just straight from the off, Wesley's been punching. Magnus has been just reeling around in shock, trying to block from here and there, but ultimately shouldn't be enough. Okay, now 2 connected pass pawns. They're about to march up the board. And, okay, only 1 check there for Black. Wesley So still in control. I do have to give Magnus some credit for surviving this long. We've been writing him off for a long time. We've been saying it's a foregone conclusion, but still alive for now.
I mean, Wesley was playing against Maxime in the Armageddon. Maxime was fighting with a knight against the queen. Here, Magnus has got a rook and bishop.
Yeah, and checkmate in 1. Be careful. Black's rook is threatening to go behind the White king to g2. The White king's actually caught in a mating net. The good thing is you can run away with the White king. You can give a few checks first with the queen. Hey, counterplay for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, this was Wesley perhaps not keeping an eye on his king. And now the king has gone to f5. Rook g2 checkmate is a threat. You can't push the pawn to create a square. You still get checkmated. So he's going to give a few checks. Suddenly, Magnus has a chance.
Oh, I can't believe we're actually saying that right now. After the game that we've just seen, Magnus Carlsen creating a threat. Wesley So slowing down under 3 minutes. He had to go up with the king to avoid mate in 1. He does it. Magnus gives a check. The king moves forward.
Yeah, he's running with the king to safety. That white h-pawn valuable in blocking any potential checks. And I think that was the only key moment, the one trick to avoid. And now Magnus still hitting thin air. The white king is entirely safe. Nothing to be done there while the pawns march inevitably up the board.
Yeah. The thing is, when you're playing Magnus Carlsen, you can have a winning position, but you have to beat him in every move. And Wesley So has done it. Magnus Carlsen resigns. Wesley So takes